The Indiana Fever are getting crushed from every direction right now. They're losing games. Fans are furious. The coaching controversy refuses to go away. And now Caitlin Clark has found herself at the center of another storm. Except this time, the criticism isn't coming from her opponents. It's coming from some of her own supporters, because after the sideline confrontation with Stephanie White went viral, fans spent days arguing about what they saw. Some thought it was normal, some thought it was frustration, others believed it revealed something much bigger happening behind the scenes. Then Caitlin Clark finally addressed it, and honestly, that only made the situation even messier, because instead of fueling the controversy, Clark completely shut it down. She defended Stephanie White, defended the coaching staff, defended the locker room, and made it clear that she wasn't buying into the narratives surrounding the team. That should have ended the conversation. Instead, it created a brand new one, because some fans immediately started asking, do they actually believe this, or is Caitlin Clark just being professional? And that's where things started getting weird. Really weird, because supporters who have spent months defending Clark suddenly found themselves disagreeing with Clark herself, not over basketball, over what they think is happening inside the organization. Meanwhile, while all of that was happening, the Fever found themselves in another controversy entirely. A Pride Month social media post, something that probably would have been routine under normal circumstances, except nothing around Indiana feels normal right now. Not with the team struggling, not with fans already frustrated, and definitely not with emotions running this high. That's why this story is getting so much attention, because what started as a conversation about a coach and a superstar has somehow turned into a conversation about the relationship between the Fever and their own fan base. And right now, that relationship looks more strained than ever. And honestly, this is where the situation became really interesting, because Caitlin Clark did exactly what most franchise players do. She defended her coach, she defended her teammates, she defended her organization. That's not unusual. In fact, it's probably what most people expected her to do publicly. Think about it. What was she supposed to say? Yeah, me and my coach can't stand each other? The team is a disaster? The locker room is broken? Of course not. No superstar says that, especially not someone as careful and professional as Caitlin Clark has been throughout her entire career. But here's where things got awkward. Some fans weren't upset with what Clark said. They were upset because they didn't believe it. That's a completely different issue, because now supporters aren't arguing with Stephanie White. They're arguing with Caitlin Clark herself. And honestly, that's a dangerous place for any fan base to end up, because when fans start believing they understand a situation better than the people involved, every statement gets treated like damage control, every explanation gets treated like spin, every denial gets treated like confirmation. That's exactly what's happening right now. Supporters keep looking at the sideline clips, the substitutions, the body language, the losses, and they keep reaching the same conclusion. Something feels off. So when Clark comes out and says everything is fine, many fans simply refuse to accept it. Not because they dislike Clark, because they're convinced they've already seen enough evidence to make up their minds. That's why her comments created so much debate. Not because they were controversial, because they directly contradicted what many supporters already believe. And once that happens, the conversation becomes much bigger than basketball. And honestly, that brings us to the bigger issue. Trust. Because this isn't really about one interview anymore. It's about whether fans trust what they're being told. Right now, a lot of Fever supporters don't. Not because they think Caitlin Clark is lying, but because they think she's protecting people. Protecting the organization, protecting the locker room, protecting the coaching staff, doing exactly what franchise players are supposed to do. That's the argument many fans are making, and honestly, it's easy to understand why they feel that way. Because supporters keep going back to the same moments. The Portland game, the sideline exchanges, the strange substitutions, the visible frustration, those images are burned into people's minds. So when Clark says everything is fine, some fans immediately compare those words to what they think they saw with their own eyes. That's where the disconnect happens. And honestly, this is the downside of living in the social media era. Every interaction gets recorded, every reaction gets clipped, every facial expression becomes evidence. People don't just listen to interviews anymore. They compare interviews to screenshots, to videos, to body language, to theories, to narratives. Everything gets mixed together. That's why this story refuses to die, because supporters aren't debating facts anymore. They're debating interpretations. One side sees professionalism, the other side sees somebody trying to keep the peace. One side hears loyalty, the other side hears somebody saying what they have to say publicly. That's a debate that has no easy answer, and while fans were busy arguing about Caitlin Clark's comments, the Fever accidentally stepped into another controversy that made an already frustrated fan base even louder, because once emotions are running high, even routine social media posts can become a much bigger story than anyone expected. And honestly, the Pride Month controversy wasn't really about the post itself. At least not entirely, because under normal circumstances, most teams make posts like this and move on. One graphic, a few comments. End of story. That's usually how it goes. But Indiana isn't operating under normal circumstances right now. That's the difference. The Fever are already under a microscope. Fans are already frustrated. Every loss is getting dissected. Every coaching decision is getting criticized. Every interview is becoming a debate. So when the Pride Month post went up, it immediately got pulled into that larger frustration. That's what many people miss. When supporters are happy, organizations get a lot of grace. When supporters are angry, everything becomes controversial. Everything, the timing, the messaging, the priorities, all of it. That's exactly what happened here. Because a lot of the responses weren't actually discussing the post, they were discussing the team. People were talking about coaching, talking about losing, talking about front office decisions, talking about Caitlin Clark. The comments became less about the message and more about the organization itself. And honestly, that's another sign of where the Fever are, right? Now fans don't seem interested in separate conversations anymore. Everything is connected. A social media post becomes a discussion about the coach, an interview becomes a discussion about the front office, a loss becomes a discussion about the future of the franchise. That's the environment Indiana is operating in right now, which is why the reaction felt so intense, because supporters aren't responding to individual events. They're responding to months of accumulated frustration, and until the Fever start changing the mood around the team, every new controversy is going to feel bigger than it probably should. And honestly, this might be the most important takeaway from all of this. Not the interview, not the social media posts, not even the coaching controversy, the growing gap between the Fever and parts of their own fan base. Because when Caitlin Clark arrived, everything felt simple. People were excited. People were optimistic. People were willing to be patient. The team was building. The future looked bright. Even losses felt different, because fans believed they were watching something grow. Now the mood feels completely different. Now every loss creates arguments. Every statement creates arguments. Every post creates arguments. And the organization seems to be spending more time responding to controversy than enjoying momentum. That's not where anybody expected this season to be. And honestly, that's why Caitlin Clark's comments created such a reaction. Not because they were shocking, because they collided directly with what many supporters already believed. Fans see frustration. Clark says things are fine. Fans see problems. Clark says the narratives are wrong. Fans see tension. Clark says people are reading too much into it. That disconnect is what made the conversation explode, because once fans stop trusting the explanations, they start trusting their own interpretations instead. And that's a very difficult situation for any organization to manage, especially one with this much attention, especially one with this much pressure, and especially one built around the biggest star in the league. That's why Indiana has a bigger challenge than simply winning games. They have to rebuild confidence. Confidence in the coach, confidence in the front office, confidence that everybody is moving in the same direction. Because right now, a lot of supporters aren't convinced that's happening. And until that changes, every interview, every post, and every loss is going to keep creating another controversy. And honestly, that's why this entire situation feels so strange, because none of these stories would normally be that big. A player defending her coach, normal. A team making a social media post, normal. Fans disagreeing online, normal. But nothing around the Indiana Fever feels normal right now, because every conversation keeps leading back to the same issue: frustration with the losses, frustration with the coaching, frustration with the direction of the team, frustration with expectations that haven't been met. That's the common thread connecting all of this. And honestly, Caitlin Clark may have ended up in the toughest position of anyone involved, because she's expected to be the leader, expected to be professional, expected to protect the locker room, expected to answer questions, expected to represent the franchise, all while dealing with the same pressure and criticism everybody else is talking about. That's not easy, not for any athlete especially, not one carrying this much attention. Meanwhile, the Fever still have a basketball problem to solve, because ultimately, wins change conversations, winning fixes narratives, winning quiets criticism, winning rebuilds confidence. Nothing else works quite like results. And right now, Indiana isn't getting enough of them. That's why every controversy feels bigger, because there isn't enough winning to push those conversations into the background. Instead, each new story becomes another chapter in an already frustrating season. And until that changes, the debates aren't going anywhere, whether it's Stephanie, White, whether it's Caitlin Clark, whether it's the front office, whether it's social media, the spotlight is only getting brighter. Now, I want to hear from you. What did you think about Caitlin Clark's comments? Do you believe she was simply defending her coach and her team? Or do you think fans are reading something deeper into the situation? And what about the Fever overall? Are supporters overreacting to a rough stretch? Or are the concerns about the direction of the organization completely justified? Drop your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we've got more Caitlin Clark and WNBA coverage coming, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.